When the lawyer arrived, I was making coffee in the kitchen. It didn't matter anymore which coffee I was making because I had heard my son, Daniel, and his wife, Victoria's plans. They were going to send me to a nursing home. But there was something they didn't know. Something very important. That morning started like any other. San Francisco's famous foggy weather seeped through the window as I stood in my small kitchen and drank coffee from my chipped mug that I'd been using for 20 years. In my 68 years of life, this house was my everything. Every corner held a memory. Every wall told a story. My husband Robert and I had moved here together. We had raised our son Daniel here. And now, my own child was trying to throw me out. When the doorbell rang, something inside me broke. I hadn't called the lawyer. Daniel had called him. "For my mother," he'd said on the phone, but I knew the truth. Last week, standing behind the kitchen door, I had heard their conversation. Every word had pierced my heart like a knife. "We'll handle it within 6 months," Victoria had said in that cold voice of hers. "Your mother is old, her memory is going. Sending her to a nursing home is the right thing. Plus, the company is busy and Emma needs care. We don't have time to deal with an old woman." Daniel's response had hurt even more. "You're right, sweetheart. Besides, it's dangerous for her to live alone in that house." The other day she left the gas on. I hadn't left the gas on, never. But they had learned to lie, to make me look sick, helpless, dangerous. When I opened the door, a young man in a suit stood before me. He had a black briefcase in his hand. "Mrs. Chen?" "I'm James Park, your son Daniel's attorney." I tried to smile but couldn't. "Please come in." The young man entered the living room and looked around. His eyes wandered over the family photos on the walls. Daniel's baby pictures, first day of school photos, graduation ceremony. Each one was a treasure to me. But to this man, they must have been just an old woman's nostalgia. "Mrs. Chen, I'm going to trouble you a bit today, but this is for your own good," he said, pulling papers from his briefcase. "Your son Daniel is concerned about your welfare and safety. You're getting older and living alone." "How old are you, Mr. Park?" I cut him off. He was surprised. 33, ma'am, but that's not—" "I'm 68 years old," I said calmly. "This house has been mine for 30 years. My husband Robert died here, in my arms. I raised my son Daniel in this house. Every corner has the tears I shed for him. Every wall has the nights I sacrificed for him. And now you're telling me this is for my own good?" The young lawyer cleared his throat. He was uncomfortable. "Mrs. Chen, I understand, but—" "No, you don't understand," I said, my voice beginning to crack, but I tried to stay strong. "You're just doing your job." "But my son, my own son—" I couldn't hold back my tears. When I held that baby in my arms 42 years ago, I swore I would do everything for him. I had worked day and night. I had done cleaning jobs. I had cooked, sewn, done everything. Robert and I had given everything so Daniel could get a good education, build a good life. And now, my son, who had become a successful businessman, saw me as a burden. "Mrs. Chen," the lawyer said, this time with some compassion in his voice, "if you don't want to talk about this—" "Talk?" I laughed, a bitter laugh. "Talk to my son? When? He comes here once a week, stays 15 minutes and leaves. Victoria never comes. I see my granddaughter Emma once a month. Who do you think talks to me, Mr. Park?" The lawyer fell silent. He didn't know what to say. "But there's something I want you to know," I said, standing up. I walked slowly to the kitchen cabinet. On the top shelf was an old box. Inside was the most valuable thing Robert had left behind. No, it wasn't money. It was truth. I pulled out the brown envelope. It had been sitting there for 30 years. Robert had given it to me before he died. "One day you'll need this, Maggie," he'd said. "I hope Daniel never hurts you, but life sometimes changes people. This envelope is your protection." That day had come. I handed the envelope to the lawyer. Before you open this, Mr. Park, I'm going to tell you something. I'm not an ignorant woman. I'm not poor either, and I'm definitely not helpless. The young man took the envelope, looking at it curiously. What is this? Open it and see. James Park opened the envelope. He pulled out the documents inside. He began to read. His facial expression slowly changed, from surprise, then to disbelief, then to complete shock. This isn't possible, he whispered. It's very possible, I said, my voice carrying strength for the first time that day. Everything is completely legal and registered. The lawyer looked at me as if seeing me for the first time. You are Daniel Chen's company's 60% shareholder, I finished his sentence. For 30 years, a truth my son doesn't know about. Silence. Deep, heavy silence. Even the ticking of the clock on the wall sounded too loud. But how? I mean, Daniel doesn't know at all? The lawyer asked, still in shock. I sat down and took a long, deep breath. It was time to tell my story. 30 years ago, when Daniel was 12 years old, my husband Robert and I were in very difficult circumstances. Robert worked in a factory, and I did cleaning jobs. We could barely make ends meet. But Daniel was a smart boy, so smart that his teachers kept telling us he should go to the best schools, that he had the potential to achieve great things. I paused, remembering those difficult days. Days when we ate rice and beans for dinner so Daniel could have meat. Nights when Robert worked double shifts so we could pay for Daniel's tutoring. One day, Daniel came home with an idea. He was only 12, but he was already thinking like an entrepreneur. He had designed a simple computer program, something about organizing school schedules. He was so excited. "Mom, Dad," he said, "if we can develop this, we can sell it to schools. We could make money." Mr. Park was listening intently now, the legal papers forgotten in his lap. Robert and I didn't know anything about computers or business, but we knew our son was special. So we did something crazy. We took out a second mortgage on this house, $50,000. It was everything we had and more. Everyone thought we were insane. My sister called me crying, saying we were going to lose everything. I got up and walked to the window, looking out at the garden where Daniel used to play as a child. We gave Daniel that money. All of it. He used it to start his company, but Robert was smart. He was much smarter than I ever gave him credit for. He didn't just give Daniel the money as a gift. He structured it as an investment. Through a lawyer friend, he set up a proper business agreement. Daniel got the money, and we got 60% of the company's shares. But why didn't Daniel know? Mr. Park asked, completely absorbed in the story now. Because Robert told Daniel it was a gift from his parents. He didn't want Daniel to feel pressured or indebted. He wanted him to succeed on his own merits, to feel like he had built everything himself. Robert always said, "Let the boy have his pride. The papers are just insurance, in case something goes wrong." I turned back to face the lawyer, and for years, nothing did go wrong. Daniel's company grew, slowly at first, then faster and faster. By the time he was 25, he was a millionaire. By 30, a multi-millionaire. And Robert and I just watched from the sidelines, so proud of our son. But you never told him about the shares? Robert was going to tell him when the time was right. But then, my voice broke. Then Robert got sick. Cancer. It moved so fast. Within 6 months, he was gone. And in those final days, he made me promise something. I walked back to my chair and sat down heavily, the memories weighing on me. He said, "Maggie, I hope you never need those papers. I hope Daniel always treats you with the love and respect you deserve. But if he doesn't, if he ever tries to push you aside or treat you like you don't matter, you have to promise me you'll use them. You have to protect yourself." And I promised him, even though I thought that day would never come. Mr. Park was silent for a long moment. "Mrs. Chen, do you realize what this means? You're not just a shareholder. You're the majority shareholder. You have control of the company. I know exactly what it means, Mr. Park. For 30 years, I've received quarterly reports sent to a P.O. box that Daniel doesn't know about. I've watched every board meeting summary. I've seen every financial statement. I know everything about that company, including the fact that Daniel has been planning to take it public next year, which would make him worth over $500 million. The lawyer's mouth literally fell open. $500 million? Give or take. And 60% of that would be mine. About $300 million, I believe. I said it calmly, as if discussing the weather. Mrs. Chen, this changes everything. Your son can't force you into a nursing home. You're one of the wealthiest women in San Francisco. But my son doesn't know that, I said quietly. And until 3 days ago, neither did I. Not really. I knew about the shares, but I never looked at what they were worth. I never cared about the money. I just wanted my son's love. I picked up one of the documents from the pile. It was a recent company valuation report that my lawyer had sent me after I finally called him last week, after hearing Daniel and Victoria's conversation. Do you know what the worst part is, Mr. Park? It's not that they want to put me in a home. It's not even that they lied about me leaving the gas on. It's that they think I'm worthless. They think I'm just a burden to be dealt with, a problem to be solved. They've forgotten that everything Daniel has, everything he's built, started with Robert's and my sacrifice. The lawyer looked down at the papers again, then back at me. What are you going to do, Mrs. Chen? I'm going to go to court, I said firmly. Daniel filed a petition for conservatorship claiming I'm mentally incompetent. He wants legal control over my affairs so he can force me into a nursing home and sell this house. Well, I'm going to fight it. And when we're in that courtroom, I'm going to show him these papers. I'm going to show him who he's really dealing with. Mrs. Chen, I have to be honest with you. I was hired by your son to help get you into a care facility. But after hearing this, after seeing these documents, I can't do that. In fact, I'm going to have to recuse myself from this case entirely due to conflict of interest. I understand, Mr. Park. But before you go, can I ask you something? Of course. Do you have parents? He nodded. Yes, ma'am. They live in Korea. Do you call them? Every week. Good. Don't ever stop, and don't ever forget what they sacrificed for you to be sitting here in that expensive suit, working as a lawyer in San Francisco. Mr. Park stood up, gathering his things. At the door, he paused. Mrs. Chen, for what it's worth, I think your son is making the biggest mistake of his life. I hope when he realizes what he's done, it's not too late. So do I, Mr. Park. So do I. After he left, I sat alone in my living room, surrounded by 30 years of memories. The brown envelope sat on the coffee table, its secrets finally revealed. Tomorrow, Daniel would receive notice that I was contesting his conservatorship petition, and next week, we would face each other in court. For the first time in 6 months since I'd heard their cruel plan, I felt something other than despair. I felt strong. Robert had given me the tools I needed to protect myself. Now I just had to find the courage to use them. I picked up my phone and dialed my own lawyer, Margaret Wu, a woman I'd found through Robert's old contacts. She'd been handling my affairs quietly for the past week. Margaret, it's Maggie Chen. The other lawyer just left. I showed him the documents. How did he react? Margaret Wu's voice was sharp and professional. Like I'd just told him the earth was flat. He's going to recuse himself. Good. That means Daniel will be scrambling for new representation. It gives us an advantage. Are you ready for this, Maggie? Once we walk into that courtroom, there's no going back. Your relationship with your son will never be the same. I looked around my living room one more time, at the photos of Daniel as a baby, as a boy, as a young man, at the life we'd built here. My relationship with my son is already gone, Margaret. He killed it when he decided I was disposable. Now I'm just making sure he understands the consequences of that choice. Then I'll see you in court next Tuesday. And Maggie, we're going to win this. After I hung up, I did something I hadn't done in months. I walked to the piano in the corner of the living room, the one Robert had bought me for our 25th anniversary. I sat down and played. My fingers were stiff at first, but then the muscle memory took over. I played Chopin, Robert's favorite. As the music filled the house, I felt him with me. "I'm going to do what you asked, my love," I whispered. "I'm going to protect myself. I just hope our son can forgive me someday." But forgiveness would have to wait. First, there would be justice. The week before the trial was the longest of my life. Daniel called me once, his voice cold and clinical, like I was a business problem he needed to solve. "Mom, I heard you hired a lawyer. This is ridiculous. We're trying to help you." "Help me into a nursing home I don't want to go to," I asked quietly. "You're not thinking clearly." "That's exactly why we need to do this. Victoria and I have found a wonderful facility. They have activities, medical care, everything you need. What I need is my son back. The one who used to hug me and tell me I was the best mom in the world." Silence on the other end. Then, "I'm still that person, Mom. I'm just trying to take care of you." By taking away my home, my independence, my dignity? We'll talk about this in court. My new lawyer says we have a strong case. He hung up without saying goodbye. I stood there holding the phone, tears running down my face. How had we come to this? How had the sweet boy who once made me breakfast in bed for Mother's Day turned into this stranger? The night before the trial, I couldn't sleep. I sat in Robert's favorite chair, holding the brown envelope, thinking about everything that had led to this moment. Emma, my granddaughter, had called earlier. She was crying. "Grandma, why can't I see you?" Dad says, "You're sick." "I'm not sick, sweetheart. I'm just fine." "Then why are you going to a home? I don't want you to go away." My heart shattered. "Emma, sometimes grown-ups make things complicated, but I promise you, I'm going to fight to stay in my house. And when this is over, I'm going to take you for ice cream, okay?" "Okay, Grandma. I love you. I love you too, baby, so much." Tuesday morning arrived with gray skies and rain, perfect weather for what was about to happen. I dressed carefully in my best navy suit, the one I'd worn to Robert's funeral. Margaret Wu picked me up at 8:30. "You ready for this?" she asked as I got in her car. "No, but I'm doing it anyway." The courthouse was the imposing building downtown. As we walked up the steps, I saw Daniel and Victoria standing near the entrance. Daniel wore a $3,000 suit. Victoria had on a designer dress and pearls. They looked like money. They looked like success. They looked like the kind of people judges listen to. I looked like exactly what I was, a 68-year-old woman in an old suit carrying a worn purse. Victoria saw me first. She whispered something to Daniel, and they both turned. For a second, just a second, I saw something flash across Daniel's face. Guilt? Regret? But then Victoria touched his arm, and it was gone. We didn't speak as we entered the courthouse. We went through security separately. In the elevator, we stood on opposite sides, Daniel and Victoria on one side, Margaret and me on the other. The silence was suffocating. "5th floor," the elevator operator announced, and we all filed out. The courtroom was smaller than I'd expected. Wood paneling, fluorescent lights, an American flag in the corner. A handful of people sat in the gallery, mostly other lawyers waiting for their cases. Margaret led me to a table on the left. Daniel and his new lawyer, a stern-looking woman named Patricia Chambers, sat at the table on the right. All rise. The Honorable Judge David Morrison presiding. We stood as the judge entered. He was about 55 with gray hair and tired eyes. He'd probably seen 100 cases like this, families tearing themselves apart over money and control. "Please be seated. Case number 2, 1024 CV 8847, Daniel Chen versus Margaret Chen, petition for conservatorship. Ms. Chambers, you may begin." Patricia Chambers stood up smoothly. She was good, I could tell. Confident, professional, prepared. Your Honor, this is a straightforward case. Mrs. Margaret Chen is 68 years old and living alone in a house that's too large for her to maintain. Over the past 6 months, her son Daniel and his wife have observed significant memory problems, confusion, and dangerous behavior. Just 2 weeks ago, Mrs. Chen left the gas stove on for several hours. She forgot to pay her utility bills for 3 months. She's become paranoid, claiming her family is plotting against her. I felt Margaret tense beside me, but she'd told me to stay quiet during the opening statements. Mr. Chen loves his mother and only wants what's best for her. He's found an excellent care facility where she'll have round-the-clock supervision, social activities, and proper medical care. He's asking this court to grant him conservatorship so he can make these necessary decisions for his mother's safety and well-being. Thank you. She sat down, and Judge Morrison turned to our table. Miss Wu? Margaret stood, and I saw something in her eyes that made me sit up straighter. She was ready for battle. Your Honor, this case is indeed straightforward, but not in the way Ms. Chambers suggests. This is a case of a son who has forgotten what his mother sacrificed for him, a son who sees his mother as an inconvenience rather than a person, a son who wants control of his mother's assets without her knowledge or consent. Daniel's lawyer started to object, but the judge held up his hand. I'll hear it. Continue, Ms. Wu. Mrs. Chen is not incompetent. She's not confused. She's not dangerous. She's a sharp, intelligent woman who knows exactly what's happening. Her son wants to put her in a nursing home and sell her house, not for her benefit, but for his own. And when we present our evidence, Your Honor will see that Mrs. Chen is far more capable than anyone in this courtroom realizes. We're asking that the conservatorship petition be denied in its entirety. Very well. Ms. Chambers, call your first witness. The petitioner calls Daniel Chen to the stand. I watched my son walk to the witness stand. He placed his hand on the Bible and swore to tell the truth. I wondered if he even knew what truth was anymore. Mr. Chen, can you describe your mother's recent behavior? It's been worrying, Daniel said, his voice full of fake concern. She forgets things constantly, important things. She left the gas on, like Ms. Chambers mentioned. She accused my wife and me of trying to steal from her, which is completely untrue. We're just trying to help. Has she had any medical evaluations? She refuses to see doctors. That's part of the problem. She's in denial about her condition. And what is your relationship with your mother like? I love her very much. She raised me on her own after my father died. I visit her weekly, make sure she has everything she needs. This petition breaks my heart, but I have to do what's right for her safety. Lies. All lies. But he said them so smoothly, so convincingly. Your witness, Miss Wu. Margaret stood and walked toward my son. Mr. Chen, you testified that you visit your mother weekly. How long do these visits typically last? About 15-20 minutes. I'm a busy man. I'm sure you are. And during these 15-minute visits, that's when you've observed all these memory problems? Yes, and my wife has seen them too. We'll get to your wife in a moment. Mr. Chen, you mentioned your mother's house. How much is it worth? Objection, relevance, Patricia Chambers said. Your Honor, it goes to motive, Margaret replied. I'll allow it. Answer the question, Mr. Chen. Daniel shifted in his seat. I don't know exactly. Maybe $800,000? Actually, it's worth $1.2 million. You undervalued your mother's home by $400,000. Interesting. Now, if your mother moves to a nursing home, what happens to that house? We would sell it, obviously. She'd need the money for her care. And who would handle that sale? I would, as her conservator. I see. And you testified that your company is doing well? Objection, Patricia said again. Mr. Chen's business is not relevant to his mother's competency. Your Honor, I'm establishing that Mr. Chen has financial motivations beyond his mother's welfare. Judge Morrison frowned. Tread carefully, Miss Wu. But I'll allow it. Margaret turned back to Daniel. How much is your company worth, Mr. Chen? I don't see how that's... Answer the question, please. We're valued at approximately $500 million. We're planning to go public next year. $500 million. Quite impressive. And you built this company from nothing? Yes, I did. With hard work and determination. No help from anyone? I had investors, of course, but I was the one who... When you started your company 30 years ago, how much capital did you need? Daniel paused. I don't remember exactly. Let me refresh your memory. You needed $50,000. Where did that money come from? My parents gave it to me. As a gift. A gift, I see. And you've been running this company for 3 decades, never thinking about that gift. My parents wanted me to succeed. They were proud of me. I'm sure they were. No further questions for now, Your Honor, but I reserve the right to recall this witness. Daniel stepped down, looking confused. He'd expected easy questions about my memory, not questions about his business. Ms. Chambers, your next witness? We call Victoria Chen. Victoria took the stand, elegant and composed. She was a good actress, I had to give her that. Mrs. Chen, you live with your husband and daughter. How often do you see your mother-in-law? Not as often as I'd like. Margaret can be difficult. She's very set in her ways. Can you describe the incidents that concerned you? Well, there was the gas stove incident, and she's been accusing us of terrible things. She says we're trying to steal from her, which is absolutely false. We've only ever tried to help. It's heartbreaking, really. I think she's just lonely and confused. Margaret stood for cross-examination. Mrs. Victoria Chen, you married Daniel Chen 5 years ago, correct? Yes. And you moved into a $3 million house in Pacific Heights shortly after. My husband worked hard for that house. I'm sure he did. Now you testified that Margaret is difficult. Have you ever told your husband that his mother was a burden? Victoria's eyes flickered. I don't recall saying that. You don't recall. Let me ask you this. 6 months ago, did you have a conversation with your husband about moving Margaret into a nursing home? We discussed options for her care, yes. And during that conversation, did you say, and I quote, "We don't have time to deal with an old woman"? Victoria went pale. That's taken out of context. Is it? Did you say those words or not? Your Honor, Patricia Chambers stood up. Is counsel suggesting she has a recording of a private conversation? Ms. Wu? The judge asked. Margaret smiled. Your Honor, I'd like to call my first witness. Margaret Chen. I stood up, my legs shaking. This was it. The moment everything would change. As I walked to the witness stand, I looked at Daniel. Really looked at him. He was staring at me with confusion and growing concern. He had no idea what was about to happen. I placed my hand on the Bible and swore to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. Mrs. Chen, Margaret began gently, are you mentally incompetent? No, I'm not. Do you have memory problems? No more than any person my age. I remember everything that matters. Did you leave the gas stove on? Never. Why do you think your son is pursuing this conservatorship? I took a deep breath. Because he thinks I'm weak. He thinks I'm poor. He thinks I have nothing but that house, and he wants to control it all. And is that true? Do you have nothing but the house? No, I have quite a bit more than that. Margaret walked back to our table and picked up the brown envelope. Your Honor, I'd like to enter into evidence the contents of this envelope. Documents that will show that Mrs. Margaret Chen is not only competent, but is in fact one of the most financially astute women in this courtroom. She handed the envelope to the judge. He opened it and began reading. And then something extraordinary happened. Judge Morrison's eyes went wide. He looked up at me, then down at the papers, then back at me again. Is this real? He asked. Yes, Your Honor. Completely real and legally verified. The judge looked at Daniel. "Mr. Chen, did you know about this?" "Know about what?" Daniel asked, standing up. "What's in those papers?" Judge Morrison's voice was cold. "Apparently, Mr. Chen, your mother owns 60% of your company. She has for 30 years, which means she's worth approximately $300 million. The courtroom exploded. The silence after Judge Morrison's announcement was deafening. Then chaos erupted. Daniel stood frozen, his mouth open, unable to form words. Victoria grabbed his arm, whispering frantically. Patricia Chambers was shuffling through papers, clearly blindsided. The few people in the gallery leaned forward, not wanting to miss a single moment of this drama. "What?" Daniel finally managed to say. That's impossible." Judge Morrison handed the documents to the bailiff. "Give these to Mr. Chen's attorney." Patricia Chambers took the papers with shaking hands. She read them quickly, her professional composure cracking with each page. "Your Honor, I need a moment to confer with my client." "Denied. Ms. Wu, please continue." Margaret turned to me, still on the witness stand. "Mrs. Chen, can you explain to the court how you came to own 60% of your son's company?" I looked directly at Daniel as I spoke. 30 years ago, when my son was 12 years old, my husband Robert and I took out a second mortgage on our house. $50,000. It was everything we had. We gave it to Daniel to start his company. Daniel's face had gone white. But my husband was a careful man. He didn't give Daniel that money as a gift. He structured it as an investment through a lawyer. Daniel received the capital he needed, and we received 60% ownership of the company. My husband told Daniel it was a gift because he didn't want our son to feel pressured. He wanted him to succeed on his own merit. "And when did Daniel find out about this arrangement?" Margaret asked. "He's finding out right now." Robert planned to tell him when the time was right, but he died before he could. Cancer took him so fast. My voice caught, but I continued. "Before Robert died, he made me promise something. He said, 'Maggie, I hope Daniel always treats you with love and respect. But if he doesn't, if he ever tries to push you aside, you have to protect yourself.'" This envelope was that protection. Judge Morrison leaned forward. "Mrs. Chen, you've known about this ownership for 30 years and never said anything." "I didn't want the money, Your Honor. I just wanted my son. I wanted him to be proud of what he built. I wanted him to feel like it was all his accomplishment. And for many years, that was enough. I lived simply, happily. I had my house, my memories, my son's occasional visits." "When did that change?" Margaret prompted. 6 months ago, I overheard a conversation between Daniel and Victoria. I looked at my daughter-in-law. She had shrunk back in her seat. They were discussing how to get me out of my house. Victoria said I was a burden, that they didn't have time to deal with an old woman. Daniel agreed. They talked about making me seem incompetent, about forcing me into a nursing home. "Objection!" Patricia Chambers jumped up. "This is hearsay." "Your Honor," Margaret said calmly, "I have the recording." The courtroom went silent again. "You have a recording?" Judge Morrison asked. "Yes, Your Honor." Mrs. Chen, understandably frightened after hearing this conversation, placed a small recording device in her kitchen. Everything she's testified to is on that recording. I can play it for the court if necessary. Daniel finally found his voice. "You recorded us? In your own house?" "It's my house, Daniel. I can record whatever I want in my own home." Judge Morrison banged his gavel as the courtroom began to buzz with whispers. "Order. Ms. Wu, I'll hear that recording." Margaret pulled out a small device and connected it to the courtroom's sound system. Daniel's and Victoria's voices filled the room, crystal clear. Victoria's voice. "Your mother is old. Her memory is going. Sending her to a nursing home is the right thing. Plus, the company is busy, and Emma needs care. We don't have time to deal with an old woman." Daniel's voice. "You're right, sweetheart. Besides, it's dangerous for her to live alone in that house. The other day she left the gas on. Victoria's voice. Perfect. We'll use that. And if she resists, we'll get doctors to say she's incompetent. Then we can sell that house. It's worth over $1 million. We could use that money. Daniel's voice. And she'll be better off in a facility anyway. She's lonely there. This way she'll have activities, people her own age. The recording ended. No one in the courtroom moved. Judge Morrison's face had turned to stone. Mr. Chen, would you like to revise your testimony about your mother's competency? Daniel stood up slowly. Your Honor, I can explain. I don't want explanations. I want the truth. Did you or did you not leave the gas stove on in your mother's house to make it seem like she had done it? The question hung in the air like a guillotine blade. Daniel looked at Victoria, then at Patricia Chambers, then at me. I thought I was helping her. By lying? By fabricating evidence of incompetency? Judge Morrison's voice was harsh. Mr. Chen, do you have any idea how serious this is? You've committed fraud before this court. Patricia Chambers stood up quickly. Your Honor, I request a recess to consult with my client. Denied. We're going to finish this right now. Ms. Wu, do you have any other evidence? Just one more thing, Your Honor. Margaret pulled out another document. This is a financial analysis of Daniel Chen's company. It shows that over the past 30 years, Mrs. Chen's shares have paid her quarterly dividends totaling approximately $15 million. Money she never spent, money she reinvested back into the company, money that helped Daniel build his empire. Daniel's legs seemed to give out. He sat down heavily. She's been funding you this entire time, Judge Morrison said, looking at the documents, and you wanted to put her in a nursing home and take her house. I didn't know, Daniel shouted suddenly. I didn't know about any of this. How was I supposed to know? You weren't supposed to know, I said quietly from the witness stand. Your father and I wanted you to succeed on your own. We wanted you to be proud. We never wanted the money. We just wanted our son. Then why didn't you tell me? Daniel's voice cracked. After Dad died, why didn't you tell me? Because I was waiting for you to show me I could trust you. I was waiting for you to visit me, not because you had to, but because you wanted to. I was waiting for you to see me as your mother, not as an obligation, but that never happened. Instead, you saw me as a burden to be removed. Tears were running down my face now, but I didn't care. Do you know what the worst part was, Daniel? It wasn't the nursing home plan. It wasn't even the lies about my memory. It was the way you looked at me, like I was nothing, like everything I sacrificed for you meant nothing. Daniel was crying too now, real tears, not the fake ones he'd shown earlier. Mom, I'm so sorry. I didn't, Victoria said. Don't blame your wife, I said firmly. You're a 42-year-old man. You made your own choices. Victoria didn't force you to abandon your mother. She just made it easier for you to do what you already wanted to do. Judge Morrison cleared his throat. I've seen enough. This petition for conservatorship is not only denied, it's being dismissed with prejudice. Mr. Chen, you will not file any further petitions regarding your mother's competency. Furthermore, I'm referring this case to the District Attorney's Office for potential fraud charges. Patricia Chambers stood up. Your Honor, please. My client made a mistake, but he doesn't deserve criminal charges. Your client attempted to defraud this court and strip his mother of her freedom. That's not a mistake. That's a crime. Judge Morrison turned to me. Mrs. Chen, you're clearly competent to make your own decisions. You're free to live your life as you see fit. This court apologizes for the time you've had to spend here. Thank you, Your Honor. As I stepped down from the witness stand, Daniel rushed toward me. Mom, please, we need to talk about this. The company, the shares, everything. No, Daniel, we don't need to talk about anything right now. But the company is going public next year. There are decisions that need to be made, board meetings, shareholder votes, and there it was. Even now, even after everything, he was thinking about the business first. I'm aware of the company's plans, I said coldly. I've been receiving quarterly reports for 30 years, remember? My lawyer will be in touch with your board. Your lawyer? Mom, we can work this out between us. We don't need lawyers involved. We absolutely need lawyers involved, because you've proven I can't trust you. Victoria appeared at Daniel's side. Margaret, please be reasonable. This has all been a misunderstanding. I looked at her, this woman who had poisoned my son against me. Victoria, you called me an old woman you didn't have time to deal with. Those were your exact words. There's no misunderstanding about that. I was stressed. I didn't mean it. Yes, you did. And that's fine. You're entitled to your feelings, but you're not entitled to my house, my money, or my dignity. Now, if you'll excuse me, I'm going home. Margaret and I walked toward the courtroom exit. Behind us, I could hear Daniel arguing with Patricia Chambers, Victoria crying, and Judge Morrison calling for order. Outside the courthouse, the rain had stopped. The sun was breaking through the clouds, and San Francisco looked beautiful. How do you feel? Margaret asked me. Tired, sad, relieved, all of it at once. What are you going to do now? I'm going to go home. I'm going to make myself a cup of tea, and I'm going to sit in Robert's chair and tell him that I kept my promise. I protected myself. And Daniel? I paused. Daniel made his choices. Now he has to live with the consequences. Maybe someday we can repair our relationship, but not today. Today, I just want to go home. Margaret drove me back to my house in the Sunset District. As we pulled up, I saw Emma sitting on my front steps. She jumped up when she saw me. Grandma! Dad said you were in court. Are you okay? I hugged her tightly. I'm fine, sweetheart. Everything is fine now. Are you still going to the nursing home? No, baby. I'm staying right here in this house, and you can visit me whenever you want. Emma hugged me tighter. Good. Because I was really scared you were going away. That evening, I sat in Robert's chair with a cup of tea, just as I'd planned. The house was quiet, peaceful. For the first time in 6 months, I felt safe in my own home. My phone rang. It was Daniel. I let it go to voicemail. He called 3 more times. Each time, I let it ring. Finally, he sent a text. Mom, please. We need to talk about the company, about everything. I'm sorry, I was wrong. Please call me. I put the phone down without responding. Maybe tomorrow, maybe next week, maybe never. Right now, I just needed to be alone with my tea, my memories, and the knowledge that I had done what Robert asked. I had protected myself. 3 months later, Daniel came to the house. I agreed to see him, but only with Margaret present. Mom, I've spent the last 3 months thinking about what I did, about what I almost did, and I'm ashamed. I'm so deeply ashamed. You should be, I said simply. I know, and I know saying sorry isn't enough, but I'm going to spend the rest of my life trying to make this right. I've filed for divorce from Victoria. I've started therapy. And I want you to know that I'm resigning from the company. That surprised me. Resigning? You own 60%. You should be CEO, not me. It's your company. No, Daniel, it's your company. You built it. I was just the foundation you built it on. Then at least come to board meetings. Please, let me show you what I created. Let me make you proud again. I looked at my son. He looked older somehow. Tired, but maybe, just maybe, a little wiser. One meeting, I said. We'll see how it goes. Thank you, Mom. That's all I'm asking for. One chance. As he left, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Hope. Maybe we could rebuild. Maybe the son I raised was still in there somewhere, buried under years of success and Victoria's influence. Maybe. But this time, I would proceed carefully, with my eyes open, with my lawyer's number on speed dial, with the knowledge that love doesn't mean trusting blindly. I had learned the hardest lesson of my life. Sometimes the people you love most can hurt you the deepest, and when they do, you have every right to protect yourself, even if it means protecting yourself from your own child. The brown envelope went back into the cabinet, but I knew where it was. just in case I ever needed it again. Because as Robert always said, hope for the best but prepare for the worst, and I had done both.